Anyway, we can get
How
back to
many times
what...
I've said an ad hominem?
Yes.
How many? Tell me. How many times have I?
I love
no,
how
tell
you
me.
want to pivot.
Tell me, how many times have I?
We're talking about free will.
That's my
Do you
point.
want to talk about free will?
Exactly.
Okay. So again, if someone acting against any type of biological stimuli does not entail free will, that means that the cause still bottoms out somewhere in like socialization or nurture. That's not like determinists don't say that like biology is the end all be all that makes your action. So
yeah, I know. And you have the environment and exterior stimuli. That's part of the worldview.
So when you say that like someone,
but the contrary again, it's necessary of the contrary logical argument here. If there is no human agency, you cannot have true rational deliberation. That's a fact.
What do you mean by true rational deliberation, by the way?
Being able to choose amongst different things and come to true knowledge claims.
Yeah, so you're not going to be the sole agent in like the things that you choose, in like in the credences that you have and the beliefs that you have. That's correct. However, people can speak and have discussions, and someone else, like using like their language, right, to sway your opinion. That happens all the time. So yes, debates can still happen.
So you believe that you're going to persuade people with in a deterministic worldview with your deterministic argument that
it's a fact of being
it's not a
the human
fact.
condition.
It's not a
Yes, it
fact.
is. Yes,
Okay,
it
let's get into logic. So 2 + 2 = 4. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Is that always true?
What do you mean by always?
It past, present, and in the future. Is it a universal
it
truth?
depends. Like there's like an entire like debate over like whether we've like found math or it's always existed. Like for example, if there was no one to see it, like in the cosmos, and we had two particles like just like rolling around each other, does that mean two? Like does that still exist? Does math still exist in that context? I think that math is probably something that we like observe and that we've kind of come to use like in a utility sense. But I don't think that I think there probably needs to be someone there counting for there to be one or two or three things. I think it's like there's some utility in math. So I don't necessarily think it's like something that you can quantify in this way of always existing. I think it's something that we kind of constructed.
So you're saying numbers are only dependent upon the things in the world?
I mean, if there's no things in the world, yeah, there's no number of things.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Numbers
are universal. Yeah, numbers pre-exist. What do you think a number Logic pre-exists creation. That's why creation is ordered in a logical way.
Okay, I would probably disagree.
Creation is not ordered in a logical way. Okay, do you believe in the laws of logic?
I think that the laws of logic are like we use them like utility-wise, right, to come to conclusions and to like
So they could be false in the future.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we've
asking
constructed
you a
system.
question. Okay, I'm asking you, could they be false in the future? That's what you're saying.
If the laws of physics stay constant, probably not. No.
So you think they are universal? That if the laws of physics stay the same, then the laws of logic
For example, if you make a system, like and like whatever conditions that precede the system continue to exist, it will continue to stay true. However, to say that like numbers and math in the way that we have like imagined it has always existed, probably not. It's just a system. For example, today I could say that like, I don't know, like 2 + 2 = 5. And if everyone starts to kind of agree with those terms or whatever, we can make that a system that works. But I just don't think that like
how would that work? Because everything we build, engineering, geometry, all this stuff is based on actually numbers mean things. Again, they're built on logical principles. So to make my point is you claiming that if we make 2 + 2 = 5, that somehow we can make that work. Actually, you can't.
More so,
you can't because it defies logic.
I meant in the semantic sense. But like either way, 2 + 2 = 4 exists because it has some meaning that we gave it.
No, it's not. We didn't give it meaning. That we discovered the laws of logic. We discovered mathematics. These things are universals and they're non-physical.
Yeah, this is just going to be like, I don't think it's like an actual tangible thing. I think most things that we see as things are tangible. I think it's an ideological system. I think it works. I think it's for pattern recognition, et cetera. But I don't think that we can in any way kind of like say that like this system existed before humans.
Right, and that's an entirely incoherent worldview. Again, this is what the people that use presuppositional apologetics or even presuppositional philosophy. This is what's called the postmodern turn, is realizing that the modernist project is ended, and the history of metaphysics.
Talk about free will anymore.
What's that?
I just would really love to talk about free will.
Free will is tied with all this stuff. What are you talking about?
No, this is like you pivoting and going down this rabbit hole so that we never get to the actual
This is all about free will. You cannot have rational deliberation, objective truth, and moral responsibility without free will. That's what we're talking about.
Every single day.
That's what we're talking about.
That this reality that we live in exists.
Okay, that's great that your whole thing is a belief based on your assumption.
Yeah,
we've heard it.
That's everyone's doing that all the time. And you can say that things must be true.
We'd love to hear about your preferences, but that's all they are.
You're only saying that things are true because you don't like the opposite, and that.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that.
You're saying, dude,
the opposite can't exist. If you're right, there aren't objective truth claims.
Can I finish talking? So,
that's my point.
In all of your arguments, you have not given any actual proof or evidence.
Everybody watching this debate who's familiar with logic and philosophy knows exactly what's going on. And shout out to all you guys. God bless you all.
He continues to interrupt me, and I just...
What about this? Do you want to pose him some questions? Do you want to do an internal critique?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to get at like what proof or evidence you have of human agency, and you've given me this neuroscience argument that I've already debunked, and you'll continue to say it over again. But again, how can you prove that human agency exists without referencing, because the outcome of the latter I don't like? What evidence do you have?
I never said
what evidence do you have for human agency?
I never said it was a preference. Let me finish.
Jesus Christ.
Just shut your mouth and let me finish.
Okay.
Thank you. About time. So the idea is I'm using logic to demonstrate that the opposite, if your worldview is true, that we cannot actually have universal truth claims and we can't have moral...
Do you have evidence
Are you going to let me finish?
Do you have evidence for...
That's what logic is. Do you understand what a debate is premised on? Yeah, logic is not evidence. The laws of logic are not...
What do you think?
Oh my God.
Just, if you can, please let each other finish,
The laws of logic are not evidence. That's what the entire mathematics is built upon. So mathematics isn't evidence, logic isn't evidence, philosophy can't be evidence. The only thing that is evidence is if I just have a preference that I assume based on my external environment, and then I can come to some type of claim. That's wonderful. That's a really, really strong argument. My argument is that if free will doesn't exist, there is no objective truth claim, and there is no moral responsibility. And even in your worldview, I know that you act and move in the world as if those things are true. My point is your paradigm, the presuppositional paradigm, the lens in which we look at reality through, your presuppositional paradigm does not actually allow for objective truth and moral responsibility, and therefore, by definition, can't be true based on logical premises.
Okay.
Logical premises are the argument that I'm making.
If we could have turned back the clock 5 minutes ago when, I don't know, you're probably raising your voice or something like that.
Probably.
If we could have done that, could you have chosen differently? If everything was the same, there's no interference, no different cause coming in, could you have stood up and gone to the bathroom?
Yeah, I can. I'm a free agent. Yeah, I can make choices.
Why?
Again, for me, I'm going to appeal back to a theological system in which we're made in the image of God, and then utilize that premise to say, if that is true, therefore we can have objective truth, therefore we can have moral responsibility, therefore we can have a totalizing metaphysics that deals with being itself and unity.
So because you were made in the image of God, you have free will. That's your kind of your...
Well, fundamentally, yeah.
Okay. So being made in the image of God means that you have free will. Okay. So, and this like, again, it's kind of like the same idea of like a soul, like this idea of like the agency thing. This is where people say that like it's given to you by God, and then people are kind of like, thus can kind of live with it, etc. The soul, like, do you agree that there's some type of soul?
Of course, I'm an Orthodox Christian. Are you familiar with Eastern Orthodoxy in any matter?
If that's true, is everyone's soul different? Like when, let's say I'm born, do I have a different soul from someone else that prompts me to do different things, or is everyone's soul the same?
So I believe in a form of Aristotelian hylomorphism. Do you familiar with what that is?
Nope.
Okay, so hylomorphism, these have to do with theories, and this theory is it's utilized more and more frequently in the philosophy of mind. And hylomorphism argues that soul actually gives form to the body. And so form is dependent upon the existence of soul. And that's exactly what we as Orthodox Christians would believe, is that the soul is actually what's giving rise to the body. And so our anthropology as a human being is soul, body, and nous. Nous being the eyes of the soul, the eyes of the heart.
So
be your noetic faculty, your mind, imagination, these types of things.
Does everyone born with a different kind of soul?
Yeah, everybody has their own soul, yeah.
Okay, and God gives it to them?
Of course.
And your soul causes you to act differently than other people?
your soul allows you to have free agency. It does. Again, the use cause is trying to put it in a sort of deterministic framework. Where you're going, I already caught it.
Okay, no, it's not a caught thing. You just don't like the wording of the same thing, right? But again, so
No,
if everyone's soul can, like, if everyone's soul is different, what does that mean?
Everybody is a unique person.
Meaning that they act differently, right?
They can act differently, or
Right.
they could act
Okay, so
similarly,
people are
or they could act the
okay,
same.
So everyone has a different soul, and this soul, like, is what is also entailed as like this agency or whatever. But this agency, everyone's agency is different. Everyone's soul is different. So essentially, the soul can prompt different actions and different outcomes in different people. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. If your soul is given to you from God and it can prompt different actions within you than other people, this means that there's something entailed in that soul that you were given by God that is causing you to act differently than other people, meaning that you're not the arbiter of it.
No,
it's
that's
your soul
not.
given
That's a
from
non
God.
sequitur. That actually is not a logical
saying
follow.
that word a lot.
No, well, because you keep falling victim to non sequiturs.
No, it's
and
not.
so,
That logically
just
follows.
because God gave you a soul, or even God foreknows the end of history, does not actually entail determinism.
Yes, it does.
No, it does not.
Yes, it
so
does.
Okay, so you understand that God is outside space and time, right?
Yep.
And so the difference is actually watching the choices that we've already made is not the same thing as making us make the choice.
He doesn't have to
When
watch
you
you.
go to a restaurant and there's only certain items on the menu, are you determined to choose something, or is actually there's a set of opportunities to make choice?
It's not opportunities. It's not.
It's not opportunities.
No.
So when you tell me
once again,
how
so when
you
we talk
choose
about
when you go to
omniscience, no, right? When we talk about omniscience, right? If God does not need to be seeing everything in linear time to know what will always happen, right? If
Right.
you just look at like the story of like anyone in the Bible, like Noah from Noah's Ark, he already knew everything that was going to happen, and thus Noah could not have acted outside of God's knowledge.
No, he could. He could have chose not to listen to God. That's
Right.
the whole point of being a Christian, is
Noah-
that we're aligning our will with God's will.
God
That's
knew,
the whole point of being a Christian.
God knew that he would not act in accordance with God, correct? God knew that Noah would not act in accordance with God.
God, as outside space and time, knew that Noah would make the choice, but Noah
Yes.
making the choice is not dependent. God didn't force him to make the choice.
Okay.
Again,
so
those are two. That's a
once again,
category. That's a logical
I didn't
category
even get
error.
to make the argument
That's a
yet.
category error.
I didn't make the error that you're trying to. I haven't
That's a
been able to-
category. You said that
I haven't been able to speak
omniscience
yet.
demands determinism.
So again, if God knew, he doesn't have to be looking at this from like a linear perspective of time, but if he always knew, he's omnipotent, omnipresent, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If he always knew what Noah could do, by definition, Noah could not do what God did not know he would do, aka God knew there was some path that everyone was going to have. God knew what their future would hold, what their present would hold, what their past would hold, whatever. There's some future that existed for Noah, and he could not have acted out of accordance with it because God already knew it.
But God knowing does not entail causation of him
I
causing
didn't
the person
say that
to
he
choose
caused it. I'm saying that he couldn't have acted differently. I do think there is an argument for causation.
No,
but
again,
regardless,
that's a
he could not have
category
acted
error because
differently.
God is out.
Can you do something that God does not know you will do?
God, he's outside space and time, so he's already looking at history as a finished, completed thing. He knows the choices I'm going to make before I've made them, but that doesn't mean that I did not have free will to make my choices.
Can you do something that God does not know you will do?
No, because God's already
Okay.
outside space and time, but again, that
So,
doesn't necessarily that's not causal necessity.
I just raised my hand. God knew I was going to raise my hand. Could I have not risen my hand?
You could have, and then God would have known that that's what
would
you were
mean
going
that
to
I
not.
could have
No,
done-
it's not, because
No.
that's a category error.
No,
You could have
that's
chose
not a
not to
category
not
error.
raise your hand, and God would have known that's what you already chose.